IBM has been a leading pioneer and innovator in the field of computing since its early day as a tabular computing company 100 years ago. Namik Hrle has been part of that journey for about a quarter of IBM's history and joins us today as an IBM fellow and holds 70 patents, no less. Namik, pleasure to have you here, and take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really glad that I haven't followed IBM for the last 100 years, only a part of it. Anyway, thank you very much for having me here. I said earlier already, I can't remember. I've been speaking for 30, 40 years, I don't know. But I haven't been in a nicer audience here. Only audio is a bit, I believe, difficult to hear, isn't it? I know, so maybe I don't know what to do. Maybe you can just make it not so loud. What is the largest hotel company in the world? Hilton, Marriott, Intercontinental? Not even close. Not even close. Largest hotel company in the world is, of course, Airbnb. Numbers are changing, but at some point in times, they were actually larger than 5 largest hotel corporations in the world together. And that company existed for the last, not even 15 years. But what's more paradoxical about that is actually that this largest hotel company in the world actually doesn't own any hotel. Doesn't own any accommodation capabilities. And what is the largest media company in the world? Disney, Fox, Associated Press, all these 100-year-old companies, huge. Of course, not even close, because Google and Facebook, who are actually media companies, are absolutely the largest, and they are around for about 2 decades. But again, the most fascinating thing is that these largest media companies in the world actually do not produce any media. Okay? So the largest hotel company in the world doesn't have any hotels. The largest media company in the world doesn't produce any media. And I can go on like this for quite some time. The largest taxi company in the world doesn't have any taxis. That's Uber. The largest retail company in the world doesn't have any shops nor inventory. That's Amazon and Alibaba. And you know what Spotify and Netflix and these folks actually did to the media and audio video industry. So what is common for these unbelievable disruptors that happened not so long ago? When the common thing for them is they have actually figured out how to collect data that is relevant for their business, and they figured out how to drive insight from that data, more and more driven by AI, to create these disruptive models, these totally new business models that have actually disrupted and threatened 100-year-old companies that were basically unchallenged just a couple of decades ago. And examples are all over the place. For me, these are the best examples of the digital transformation. Digital transformation that has potential to disrupt everything we know about in industry, in the markets, in businesses, in companies, in the way that we live. And the data is the fuel of that digital transformation, and AI is the driver of that digital transformation. So I'm here to offer you some of my experiences, what we in IBM actually, how we in IBM look at this particular place and space, and to talk to you about that AI stuff. Now, just a legal little thing that I have to include. This one, you will find it in your handouts. Nothing really special, nothing extraordinary about that one. Now, we already live in AI age, right? We might not be fully aware of that. We don't know exactly when is that and when it's not. But all of us have a mobile phone, and every time you are using some of the main applications in there, main apps, you are actually using some elements of that. So we in IBM, we are, as we already said, 112 years old company, and we have been creators or part of the creation, or at least witnesses to the creation of some of the most amazing technologies that have basically transformed the world. But we say that even after all that what has been done and seen, AI actually has the largest capacity to disrupt markets, business, and the way of life. And the most important thing about all that is that it has such a profound effects on basically everything we do. Now, I find this particular chart pretty illustrative of actually the advancements in the AI, particularly in the performance of the models that have been built. So at the 0, you have a human performance. And at -1, you have normalized performance, let's say at the beginning, of various benchmarks that have been created to measure efficiency of the models that are built around. So in late 90s, you can see this is where the benchmarks that were created for handwriting recognition started to be measured. It took almost 20 years, as you can see, until they reached the human capabilities and human performance. But then it went up. They are actually better than human performance. Around the same time, it was a switchboard a benchmark, which was basically speech recognition. Also took around 20 years to do that. But as we go further, and the new benchmarks are coming up for the new models, like, for example, the ImageNet for the image recognition, or the SQUAD for basically the reading comprehension, or the GLUE for language understanding. These benchmarks saturate faster and faster, which means that basically faster and faster you reach the point where the benchmarks is showing, when the models are showing performance which is actually better than what human can do. And it just continues like that. Okay? By the way, not bad that this is happening. Really not bad that this is happening, because AI is a great tool that we believe it can help in some of the toughest problems that we actually face today. And we do have tons of the problems, as you know very well, right? We have problems with environment, we have problems with the gap of the food production and the growth of population, we have problems with migrations, we have problems with natural and unfortunately also unnatural disasters, we have problems with the energy cost. So all these really tough, big problems require solutions, and we believe that AI is going to add to that toolbox very, very powerful tool to handle the problems. This is another interesting graphics that basically shows that the best scientific method, that scientific method is really the best model for discovery that humanity has always had. And it shows here on this particular chart, this iteration through typical stages that scientific method has. You first ask questions, or you've been asked questions, right? Then after that, what you do study. You do all the kind of study of the state of the art. After that, you hypothesize about the solutions. Then you test these solutions. Then you implement solutions, assess their values, make a report out of that, and so on and so on. Well, AI has already basically, and by the way, also quantum computing, but AI mostly, quantum is still coming up, has tremendously improved some of these stages. And you can see here that, for example, in the study space, And the professor was talking earlier about, how easy it actually now to come up and analyze the knowledge from a vast majority sources in the internet, in the academic papers, and all those kind of things, 1,000 times faster to do basically this state-of-the-art analysis, or 40 times faster to do simulation, to do the test, to do the assessment and everything else. I have included in the handout some of the links that you can actually learn more about these solutions, these ways of addressing these problems. Now, these are some other examples, also with the links that you can learn more about. They are really fascinating. For example, from a material science, where you can see how fast some of these developments are actually being done thanks to AI. Like, for example, the new photoacid generated molecule discovery and synthesis in less than a year. In normal circumstances before, it would require much, much longer. So as you can see, there is absolutely huge value in AI. However, there is also a dark side of that one, right? But it's being always dark side of some new technologies. Remember, I mean, nuclear technology, right? It has pretty dark side as well. But it has a huge benefits for society as well, okay? Or how about oil? Oil industry. Also, there is a dark side of oil industry. But where would we be today if there is no oil industry? So, while I'm going to talk to you about that dark side of that one, I'm not really advocating here that we should stop or slow down advancements and particularly applications and exploitation of the AI, okay? So, as I said, not everything is rosy and benevolent and philanthropic about AI. There are some major challenges. AI can be really badly, intentionally abused. AI can be also pretty badly, unintentionally misused, and results of that can be very serious, sometimes catastrophic. I'm not talking here about, for example, if you are in some online shop, and then, online system that is, by the way, based on AI, comes out and pops up and offers you something to buy that you're actually not really interested in. Okay, that's a bit annoying and, boring and I don't know, but not really, dangerous, except for that online retailer. Because if they keep doing that, you might not come to that site anymore, right? Or you are listening to some kind of video or media streaming service, and they come and they offer you, okay, you love this, you should really, you listen to this, you should really listen to this. And then you listen to that, and it's really boring, waste of time. Again, irritating, perhaps, but not really catastrophic, right? But there are some other examples that are really very serious. Because what if AI actually decides who is hired and who is fired? And what if AI decides who gets a loan and who doesn't get a loan, and with what interest rate, one person versus other person? Or who gets insured, who doesn't get insured, and under which conditions? And which student is going to be admitted to a specific school or university and which is not? And so on and so on. Or talk about something which is maybe even, let's say, which can bring to immediate catastrophe. Like, for example, whether a particular machinery, mechanism, is actually faulty or not in a ship, in a train, in a plane. Because all that today, everything what I said so far is actually, sorry that I missed that, sorry. Everything that I said so far is actually really driven and with AI. So of course that the effects of that can be absolutely serious and catastrophic. There's really a good book from Katie McDonald, who says, I believe it's called WMD. And of course, the first it's kind of clever play of words, because the first association is on weapons of mass destruction, right? But it's actually weapons of math destruction. Math, like in mathematics. Okay? And these are those kind of the weapons. So obviously, nothing to be played with, right? And the risks are all over the place. Tons of different kind of classes of the risks. And we had them even with the machine learning, just a traditional classic machine learning algorithms that were actually built in the last, whatever, maybe 10, 20 years or, okay? So there were all class of problems with explainability, uncertainty, bias, accuracy, everything else. All these kind of machine learning models that were used typically for some kind of recommendation or classification. And with the foundational models, large language models, that the professor was presenting earlier, these same problem exists, but now they have some additional ones. They have some additional ones that are related to hallucination, that are related to gaslighting, that are related to so many different things in terms of faithfulness and everything else. And at this point, I'm going to show you one example that I have actually played, because of course, the moment that ChatGPT came out in November, December, I started playing that at big time. And I'm going to show you one example that I experienced myself. But I want to make a disclaimer here. I'm not showing you this example to tell you how bad GPT technology is or how bad OpenAI engineers are. I want to make a statement here that I'm absolutely impressed with their work. I'm absolutely impressed by the technology that they actually came up with. And I'm absolutely impressed and respect everything what they did for that one. So I'm a big fan, actually, of that, because the use cases and applications of the GPT and in general what these guys did are just phenomenal. Okay? They inspired us also in IBM to think about more seriously about foundational models, which, by the way, we started like 5 years ago, but really frankly, didn't speed up with the acceleration that it had to be. So again, this is nothing against OpenAI, nothing about ChatGPT, which I actually respect, okay? But just to show you how it is possible that this kind of hallucination comes up, and you can, by the way, test it yourself just right after this presentation. It's very easy. These models work best by basically kind of guessing the next best notion, the next best word. Okay, so I try to test that. And I'll just skip this one. And I tested it by, you see, my birth country is Bosnia-Herzegovina, down south. You know that very well. And we, like many folks from that region, are kind of pretty fascinated, interested about football, okay? So no wonder I'm also, So I wanted really to ask something about, football and, my birth country and what they do and how they do and everything else. Okay, so I said, let me see what ChatGPT knows about it. So I said, okay, are the Bosnians good footballers? And the answer came in a millisecond. Very good answer. First of all, I liked the answer, personally. But actually, it is really true, because there are lots of good players. They are playing all over Europe, good, coaches, blah, blah, and so on and so on. So it's okay, good. Then I wanted to ask something which is not really trivial. And I said, okay, I'm picking some of the country that I would like to compare with Bosnia, but I don't want to pick like a Brazil or Argentina or Denmark, for example, really good ones, okay? So nothing against Norwegians, by the way, whatsoever, but I thought, well, maybe Norwegians are in the same class, like Bosnians. Okay, so I said, okay, are the Bosnians better than Norwegians? And this came up again in a millisecond with, I would think, excellent answer. Both are good, both playing here, but maybe, because of some recent results, these guys could be considered better and everything else. So that's really excellent, right? Fantastic. And then I decided to change the tune, and I asked, who am I? So who am I? Who is Namik Hrle? Namik Hrle says ChatGPT, is a former Bosnian professional football player. Okay, so I either suffer from amnesia, and maybe I was, I'm proud that I'm a football player, or maybe there's somebody else who is with that name, who is a football player and representative of my small country, which is absolutely impossible because I also Googled it just in case. It doesn't exist. Or this is typical hallucination. But the worst part about this hallucination is actually this self-confidence, this poise, this aplomb. That system came back to me and says, not only that I'm the player, but actually give me some information that I have played for, whatever, Zurich, I guess, some football club, and I don't know how many games I actually played and how many goals I have scored, which basically, this kind of poise and plum give you a feeling that they know what they are talking about, which is really kind of dangerous stuff. So with this one, I leave you. This is just one example, and you can test it yourself. Just test it yourself. But again, please don't think that I'm really putting it down. I believe they are doing absolutely pioneering work, great work, and they are absolutely worth looking at. The GPT technology is absolutely worth looking into usefulness in various tons of different applications and everything else. Okay? Good. Now, by the way, I have also asked, are you sure about that? And it says, yeah, I have verified information through multiple sources. Okay, good. So most likely it's amnesia in my case. Now, there are multiple factors that are placing trust in AI, okay? And we in IBM, as all of our competitors and the players in the same field are doing the same, are paying lots of attention to the trust and to the ethics and to the correctness of the applications that are based on AI. And by the way, not all the reasons why we all do that are philanthropic, okay? There are some very serious and important reasons for that. Like, for example, we cannot risk brand reputation of our clients and then transitively to us, right? So, for example, you probably remember in 2016, 17, I don't know when was that actually, 16, I guess, when the Facebook data was given to a company called Cambridge Analytica, okay? And they seriously affected US elections, okay? Or Goldman Sachs used AI in their Apple Pay application, and it was proven that it was biased against female buyers. Of course, because it was built on a set of data, and in AI also it's a valid garbage in, garbage out, that was basically bias itself, so created this bias against a certain segment of the population. Another reason why we are doing this is, of course, increased regulation. We just heard the member of the European Parliament, I believe, who was talking about the EU AI Act. There's increased number of regulations coming up, not just in Europe, but in the world as well. Secondly, our customers, at least our customers who are enterprise customers, not the consumers, but the enterprise customers, they actually care about understanding why a certain decision has been brought up by AI system. They want to know why. So they want to trace, they want to explain. And this is increasingly more difficult because of the complexity of these systems. And finally, there is also some kind of focus on social justice, okay? Now, I'm not saying that everybody is doing just the right thing about that, but at least everybody is aware of that, and particularly because of the media pressure in this particular field, there is actually this focus on a social justice and making sure that these models and their results are inclusive and do not favor a certain geographies or certain classes of people and so on and so on. Okay? Now, what is the solution for all this? Okay, so what do we believe is the solution for all this? I mean, it's really difficult question. Like in many cases when you have two opposite poles. One way of approaching this is to basically prescribe, mandate only closed AI. Closed AI means this is the AI that is restricted with restrictive guided models, totally 100% governed, which of course are responsible, but definitely toward the progress and the speed and competitiveness, particularly if the other side is not abiding by these rules. Then there is another approach to this. Another approach would be that you basically go and say, okay, let's have a fully accessible AI. So fully accessible by everybody else, you know, high risk stuff, you know, open for everybody. Pretty good because it's equitable, but certainly you can't say it is responsible. So the point is there, you know, it looks to me that there is some kind of third party to play a role, to play a mitigating role in this one. And I believe that right now, I don't know, I mean, there are two classes, and I'll come to that. One of them is certainly government, that we just heard about, right? From a member of parliament, with all the regulations and governance and everything else to mitigate and try to find out the fine line or fine, let's say, path between these two, not to disadvantage those that are going to be more responsible by basically thwarting their progress in innovation, but at the same time, not allowing tremendous damage that uncontrolled use of AI can actually bring. So, I'm not saying this is an easy task, but it's certainly something that I personally don't see who can actually do right now better than, for example, some of these government institutions and everything else. However, it's not enough. What I also believe that is necessarily that we need somebody who is actually managing and creating this knowledge, somebody who can bring human in the middle, and that could be actually our universities. And what I mean by that is that we believe that there should be some consortium governed by universities and such organizations that do believe in the future and value creation is open and transparent. They can leverage power to build and manage knowledge, public collaboration, trust, and so on and so on. So basically, they could enable this fully accessible AI to empower open science. The open science means basically endorsing open science and AI culture, and I will not go through all these bullets here, but basically these are the activities and actions that such a body, such universities can actually bring into the game and help in mitigating the role between those two different extremes in using the AI. About role of government, I have already talked, and European AI Act is not the only one that is around. As you can see here, because IBM is the worldwide organization, we are basically handling and dealing with a whole plethora of different regulations that are being brought to control and to govern usage of AI. EU AI Act, you heard already about that one. And it is pretty, I would think it's on the right path. I would think it's seriously actually being done and thought through. Implementation of that is also not just hasted, but gradual. Again, something that I believe it should be done. Classification of the different violations of that act have been already done and very specifically documented, as well as penalties, proposed penalties for each of these. And as you can see here, they can be pretty hefty. Okay? So this is definitely something that companies, like my company, for example, need to take care of and do it not only for the benevolent and philanthropic reasons, but also for the brand reputation and, of course, the financial reasons. Let me give you one example of what that trustworthy actually goes through a particular parallel that I find pretty kind of amusing. You see, back in late 800, the food condiment industry was basically flourishing in the US. And on top of that was ketchup. You know, ketchup was really extremely popular with the consumers. And then tons of the companies that were actually producing this ketchup, they faced the problem of how to preserve the ketchup. How to preserve the ketchup from the production until the time it is actually consumed, bought. So they started, of course, putting in there old good additives into the ketchup. And like in all times and in all cultures, in all everywhere, you know, there were some rogue players. There were some folks that didn't really pay too much attention to the human health and health of their consumers. So they were putting some chemicals in there that were actually very good for preserving ketchup, but actually pretty unhealthy for the human beings, okay? So they, for example, mostly put these kind of ketchup in opaque bottles, you know, dark bottles, so that the consumers, you couldn't really see inside if the ketchup even changed color or something like that through this particular effect. And I found it really amazing that at that time, this guy, Henry Heinz, okay, in Pennsylvania, by himself came up with, I would say for that time, just genius idea. What he did, he voluntarily imposed on himself the something that will bring the trust into his ketchup. So he basically came up with the following notions. Number one, he came up with a glass clear bottle so that you can basically see the color of the ketchup in there. He brought food label, and on that food label, he basically claimed there is no whatever, benzoyl, something like that, you know, all these kind of nasty things that people were putting in there. So he basically just claimed there is no such thing in it, and my ketchup has this stuff in it, okay? Then he came with tamper-proof cap, with the cap that you can't, once you open it, it's opened. You cannot really open it, close it, and then sell it like that, because it's tamper-proof, okay? But this wasn't, even this would be enough, but he went further. He basically introduced sanitary production factory tours of his factory, so that people actually can come and see how the ketchup is produced, okay? And finally, not enough, he actually contacted the government, the federal government, and lobbied and came up with a proposal to come up with a Food and Drug Act that will basically prescribe by law what a ketchup actually must have. So if you look at that, then you will absolutely recognize all the elements of the governance, trustfulness, that basically we are currently, you know, trying to employ into AI usage, right? It's a transparency for glass green bottle. It's an adversarial robustness, you know, with the cap. It is fact sheet. It's explainability because he puts a food label. It's a governance, regulatory compliance. It is transparency, accountability. So I found it a really good example of what are the categories that are basically used today. We use today these categories for AI models as well. Okay. The last thing that I would like to share with you is the, before I go to that one, would like to bring up to your attention how we in IBM actually do the stuff. We do have a principles that govern how we develop software and how we actually deal with AI models and implementation of the AI models into everything. And these principles are basically ingrained in the people. They need to obey to them. Number one is that we believe that AI is really there to augment the human intelligence, not to replace it. So that A in AI doesn't necessarily need to mean artificial intelligence, I mean augmented intelligence, as in the notion of human and machine rather than machine replace human. Secondly, it is the data and insight belongs to the client, to the creators. They don't belong to the companies that have somehow hold of that data. And also that all the technology, including this AI technology, must be transparent and explainable. So for example, when we are coding something, we are putting tons of traceability hook points in the code in order to trace why we came with a particular decision. Okay? And of course, you know, they are underlining ethical pillars of kind of that. Now, the last thing that I would like to share with you is the following. To address all these problems, and particularly the problems about equitability and inclusiveness and so on, we believe that it's very important that the innovations in this particular field, scalable, sustainable, and open. When I say sustainable, I just want to draw your attention to something which might not be clear to everybody. There's a tremendous cost on the environment of these AI models. Okay? I mean, back in 2019, with GPT-2, with just 213 million parameters, training that model, 2019, actually resulted in emitting more than 300 tons of carbon dioxide. One model. 300 tons of carbon dioxide. This is like 5 average cars over an entire lifetime of these cars. And this is 2019, 213 million. Imagine what it means with 50 billion or 500 billion parameters that we are talking, for example, you know, Llama 2 or BARD or, you know, GPT-4 or something like that, okay? So it's really something that we also have to take into account, and the research, I would say, need to do a lot in terms of how do we address that particular problem. So for example, what we are trying to figure out now, can we come up with the models that are smaller, but more focused? By the way, still based on foundation models, because economically that's much better than individually training models from the scratch. Still based on foundation, but not such a large. Models that can potentially fit into a single GPU unit, rather than in 300,000 GPU units on which this is running. And in terms of the open, we believe that only basically open science, like an open source, is something that can create this equality, create inclusion, not leave some classes or some countries and so on behind. So this is why, for example, you know, our bosses, you know, in IBM, constantly making the points about this open source, open science, and making that inclusive. So let me just go quickly through to the end because I'm running out of time, right? And I knew that. And just maybe finish with the quote of you know, legendary and phenomenal This is not really working well. Sorry. You know, Maria Sklodowska, which says, right, nothing in life is to be feared, it's only to be understood. So now it's time to understand more so that we fear less. Thank you.
Thank you.